Yeah, by the time you're doing one deal and you do it consistently, you already have a foundation. All you do is add some more layers to that.
This video is brought to you by Flipster, the nation's largest property database, including houses on the MLS and off-market leads, like pre-foreclosures and vacant homes. To find your next wholesale or fix and flip deal, start your free trial today at joinflipster.com.
Rafael,
Hey.
thanks for sitting down and doing this interview video with me. I'm excited to get to know you here. You know, I'm visiting here in Phoenix and you live here and we're at this event, and thank you for taking time to sit down with me.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the invite, man. It's an honor.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to learn about your business and what you're doing. You've got a thriving wholesaling business, doing a lot of deals here in the Phoenix market, right?
Right.
And what I love about what you're doing is you've taken this concept of wholesaling, right? Where we find a distressed property, we get the contract, assign that to an end buyer, and take that idea, that technique, and build a strong business. And a business, right, is where it can be repeated again and again.
Yeah.
And I hope you listening right now, if you're working on that first deal, that you're not thinking about the deal, but you're thinking about how do I create a business around the idea of doing deals or the concept of doing deals. Because it's not just about that deal, right? I mean, the first deal is great, but it's about building a business. Why do you see that as so important in this?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. I think you hit it right in the head, right? I mean, we're looking for longevity. We're not. Most of us jump into the vehicle of real estate to do something that's going to take us to the next level, meaning in terms of financial freedom, in terms of time freedom and whatnot. Often what happens, and we see it all the time with, especially with students, right? It's that people will get into it. They'll get into the, that the hustle mentality. And next thing you know, they're in just it's a more expensive rat race.
Right. It's like you replaced your good paying job with a better paying job.
Yeah. But you're still in it, right?
But you're still in a job.
If you step away from it, the whole thing comes crumbling down. So I think the mentality that the hustle is a season. It's not a business strategy. I think it's one that needs to be adopted, even as you're going through the fundamentals of creating getting your first deal.
And when you say a season, meaning there's a period where hustle is a very important part. 100%. But if it stays a hustle, then you never really build a business. And what you're saying is, there's a season, but you better be focusing on a business that does deals. Right. I like to say a lot to people, don't chase a deal, focus on building a business that does deals. And there's a big difference, right?
Absolutely, 100%. You can, when you create something to the point where you can step away from it and the machine is still going, then you have a business. Otherwise, you're self-employed, right? And we've heard that before.
And that's where lifestyle really can happen, is when you can step away from the business and it keeps making money without you being there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that idea, I think people hear of that idea, but that can be applied to wholesaling, can it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all you got to do is be a little bit methodical when you're just going through the process of wholesaling, right? It's not rocket science finding the seller, negotiating the stuff and all that stuff. But when you try to explain it, when you start getting more active and get busier and whatnot, and you start thinking about hiring that first person. I'm gonna get a VA to help me out with my cold calling and my marketing and that sort of thing. What happens? Like, man, I don't know what to assign them with. Like, I don't know what to have them do. So it's easier to go through that hustle. I'm not gonna worry about it than it is to come in and
just grind my way through another deal. Exactly. And what you've done is what I love about you, because I'm a systems guy. I love a process. I love a system. In fact, I don't even want to be a part of something anymore if I don't really understand the system and I can delegate the system.
Right.
So what you've done is you've taken wholesaling and you've broken it down into 6 steps.
Right.
So really, if you think about it, there's functions in a business. And once you kind of identify those functions, create some really strong processes around them with people and tools, now you can delegate that and outsource that. So let's talk about it. Let's walk through your 6 steps that you have. You're very clear about this and you've proven this model in your own business. And I'd love for you to share with everybody listening these 6 different steps that you take.
So the 6 steps, it's about having a mapped out process, right? That's one thing. And the second thing that it creates is accountability. to yourself, and you don't have to. This is if you just follow the process, you're gonna know what stage of a transaction you're in, right? You don't have to have a team of 10 to start doing just the accountability on yourself when you're following through. But the first one is gonna be sourcing. You're sourcing the deals. You're doing pay per click. You're doing cold calling, SMS. Marketing is always dynamic, right? I mean, there's things that you have to come in and then just account for whenever, for example, we have shifts going on in SMS. Text messaging is a great strategy for a period of time. And then red flags happen.
Yeah.
So you have
regulation, changes in technology, market shifts, right?
Exactly.
Things happen.
And when you understand that as okay, it's a strategy that I'm using right now, but the foundation is sourcing. Okay, you can go back to it and pivot. The second one is converting. So from there we go, so we source the deals, we have cold callers, that stuff going on. And then they source the deals, gauge for interest, they send it over to a pre-qualifier, so lead manager. So we have a filter there, it's a conversation, discovery conversation. The whole point of these two stages at the beginning is to, when they get to the third step, which is acquisitions, where you negotiate the deal, actually start finding out what the real problem, with the seller is and how you can add value to it. You have a pre-qualified lead. So you're not talking to say that you're trying to source 1,000 people, right? Yeah. You're not talking to 1,000 people. Right. You source.
You're looking for someone to raise their hand.
Exactly. Raise their hand, and they just kind of, the funnel gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So you're talking to 10 as opposed to 1,000, maximizing your time and that sort of thing. So the
pre-qualifier is just going to verify, yes, you're interested in selling. There's really not much more than that at the pre-qual, right? Yeah. Hey, I'm interested in selling. Great. Now we're going to move you to acquisitions.
Yeah, and we pre-qualify based on condition, motivation, timeline, and price.
Okay, so the 4 qualifiers. Four qualifiers. Guys, always know the 4 qualifiers. Say them again.
Condition.
Condition meaning the condition of the property.
Condition of the property. Motivation.
How motivated are they? Urgency and all of that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Timeline.
Well, that's urgency. Yeah, time. How quickly? Because if they're looking to sell when their kid graduates college,
I'm very motivated to sell in 5 years. I mean, all right,
right.
That's a follow-up
and then the fourth one was
price.
Price, yeah, obviously.
It's the golden ticket, right? If you start and the price, matches right out of the gate. I mean, some people sometimes they just.
Rafael, I'll stop you there for a second because I'm good friends with Cody Hoffine. I don't know if you know Cody, but he says that price is a what's he call it? Oh, shoot. It's deceiver. Thank you. It's a deceiver because sometimes they'll tell you a number, but it's not really their number. So if the other 3 are there, it doesn't really matter what price they tell you initially because they're probably willing to get something done.
There's a discovery conversation that's going to happen. Right? And that's where you take it over to that acquisition stage.
So at the acquisition stage, you're really verifying those 4 key elements are present that will let you know you're dealing with a motivated seller.
Exactly. Okay. I mean, you have deal analysis, comps, and all that stuff. Really, you dive deep in, and when you're in that stage, and get there's one role that needs to happen there, and that's the signature. That's the one job acquisition has. So you have one job, bro.
Get that contract.
Get that signature. And then we have, of course, disposition, which is the 4th stage, where we market the deals out. There's different ways of just coming about how to building the buyers list and all that. Right.
This is finding your cash buyer.
Exactly. Now, most businesses, one thing that I see happen quite often, Jerry, is that most businesses stop there. Most wholesale operations.
Stop at dispo.
Yeah, they sell the deal, get that settlement statement,
get that
see
check,
the check,
take a picture, put it on Instagram,
and then scratch their heads and go back to the beginning. They're like, how do I find another seller? Right?
Yeah. It's almost like you're out of business every deal you do.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people who don't have really good business model is every deal you do, you're out of business again. Meaning you got to start all over from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, the natural tendency is to look at things almost like a project. You're looking at a deal like a project, but the project is done. Now you have to come back up and then create another project. So the last 2 stages are measuring.
Measuring.
Okay. That's where you actually track KPIs. You see what's working.
What's a KPI?
Key performance indicators. Basically, they're metrics that tell you how well your business is doing. So they're good to know, for example, how much is a lead costing me, right? How much is a deal costing me? And there's a few KPIs that we track, specifically. But what it does is, more importantly, it gives you insight as to, your performance, right? But it gives accountability to every single one of the other stages.
and to every dollar you're spending, right? It holds you accountable. What we do with your KPIs is, you're always spending money on marketing, and we want to track where those marketing dollars are going, how they're doing. And then what we do is we'll look back and we'll say, okay, well, this marketing channel is working really well right now, PPC or whatever it might be. Let's reallocate some budget now over here, because that's working a little better right now. But next month, we know it might not be working as good, and we'll reallocate again. And it's just being smart with how you manage all your processes, and especially your money.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick case in point, a few weeks back, I was mentioning SMS, right? A few weeks, we track KPIs every week, and each department, I guess, each stage has certain KPIs that they have to, come in and then just put into the scorecard. So, but a couple of weeks back, we were looking at SMS, and we went from, I believe it was around 60 leads through SMS to drop to about like 25 leads in a week. It was like, what's going on? What happened? If we hadn't been tracking KPIs, we would have kept going with that campaign, then putting a lot of money into that campaign.
More money, even though it's not working as good.
So you see a hiccup there. You go back and then you know where to look for it. You find the
at least you know the question. At least you know there's questions like why.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the list. Maybe it's the volume. Maybe it's what is it? And sometimes you don't really know.
Yeah.
But at least you're asking the right questions, which is going to force you to reevaluate what you're doing.
You have something to troubleshoot.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, if you don't know what questions to ask, you'll never find where the problems are.
Yeah.
But ask the right questions and you can start to discover.
Exactly, know where to look. We went back to that, for example, and then we found out that there was new words in texting that were being picked up by the carriers. Like everything in our end.
So they were spamming them.
Yeah, they were spamming.
Okay, so they were never getting into people's.
So we had to come in and then just
But imagine had you not discovered that.
Exactly.
You'd have been wasting money.
And it happens all the time. It happens all the time. It doesn't take much to really track your stuff and measure your business if you know what you're looking for. But it doesn't.
Raphael, I tell people all the time, like new investors, the worst thing they can do is be like new in the business and go drop like 20 grand in marketing cost without having any idea of how to track it, how to measure it, how to convert it.
Yeah.
And so this is where these steps you're talking about are so critically important, because you've got to know how to move through these different steps.
Yeah, it really moves the needle when you have that at least sense of awareness of what's going on, right? Especially with the money. Like, you're making money, you want to make sure that your money is going to the right place. Yeah.
Totally, because it's expensive, and it can make the difference between profitable and not profitable.
Yeah.
So what's after measuring?
Improvements. So
improvements is 6. Okay.
Yeah, that's the nail in the coffin, right? It's a 6th step, and it's a series of questions that we actually go through. We use the KPIs, and every single week we have operations meetings, right? And we sit down. Okay, what happened last week? What deals did we close? Where did we leave money on the table? What kind of marketing did it come from? So that's where the KPIs are not just a placeholder. We actually come in and then dissect and break them down, and create new processes after that.
So it's constantly updating your processes, your KPIs based on feedback from the results that you measured.
Yeah.
And that's that improvement stage.
Yeah, exactly. That's the, you measure for a reason, right? And then you have to come back and then do something about it. Again, I want to emphasize, these are just stages, but you don't have to have a whole team to run your business like that. If you're a solo shop, you can do the exact same thing. I was doing the exact same thing when I didn't have a team.
When you were a one-man show.
I was like, okay, cool, I'm at the sourcing stage. This is what can happen here. And then whenever I came across something new, that was just a new process and I hadn't done it before, I would just document. Yeah. Like, turn on loom.com, just a video service, and start doing a little training video.
Screen capture.
Yeah, screen capture of it.
That's how we train all of our VAs, is we just screen capture your screen and get a free software. We use iShowU, it's for Mac, but there's all kinds of them, but it'll screen capture, and then you walk through what you want done. Yeah. And then that can be your training.
It's easy. It's easy as you're going through the process yourself, because you have to do it anyways, right? You got to run comps, you got to do analysis, you got to do all that stuff. So just turn the screen on. Now you have a protocol for it, and these start adding up, and you segment. We segment those into 6 buckets, which is just the process that I just laid out.
Yeah, this is really good, Raphael. Thank you for sharing this. Would you say, for somebody right now that is a solo, so maybe they're out there doing a couple deals, and it's just them, maybe a partner or something, that seems common, and it's time to, like, okay, we're ready to reallocate some of our money from a deal, and we're ready for like our first hire. Where would you say is the first place to go? What is the first hire in your opinion?
The sourcing stage. So if it's either going to be a VA doing cold calls or a lead manager who understands how to screen. And not necessarily negotiate.
And then you stay still the closer because so you stay the closer. Don't replace the closer first. This is really, I like this because I've heard lots of everyone's got different ideas, right? And you have to decide what you feel is best for you because there is no right answer. Everybody does things a little different. I do things different than maybe you do. But it's really understanding your different options. And I like what you're saying because your first hire, if what you're saying is they should be a lead manager or maybe a cold caller that can do that pre-qualification stage, then now you're not on the phone pre-qualifying, which is huge. You're only on the phone closing.
Exactly. And the way that I see it, again, to kind of paint that picture, right? If we have a list, right? We're cold calling, we have a list of, 1,000 people. Yeah. The cold caller is going to go through that tasky work. Yeah. I don't want to sit there and call 1,000 people. No. They're going to go through that. Maybe 100 raise their hand, right? 100 are going to make it over to a lead, that second conversation. But I end up talking to, 10, right? And that's the highest and best use of my time. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to optimize my time. A lot of times what I see is if people want to delegate, I want to get an operator. They delegate too much too soon. Yeah. And that's dangerous. I feel like you got to know, enough about your business so that you're dangerous in it and in every aspect of it.
And that's that building phase, maybe that hustle phase where you better really understand before you start delegating. If you delegate too early, you're just going to have people now that aren't really efficient.
Yeah,
and that's going to hurt you.
You don't know what to keep them accountable for. You don't know if they're doing a good job or not. And it's just, it's. So
guys, that's a great tip there, cold calling. Now, let me ask you this question because I think this is a fascinating question too. To run a business that's doing maybe 3 to 5 wholesales a month, what would that team need to look like? Would that be a couple cold callers maybe and an acquisitions manager?
3 to 5, I would do.
What would that look like?
I would do probably 2 cold callers.
2 cold callers.
1 lead manager, 1 acquisition rep. You don't need to have a bunch.
So 2 callers, a lead manager, and again, what's the lead manager doing? Pre-qualifying? Pre-qualifying. So the cold callers generate a hand raise. Yeah. The lead manager pre-qualifies, do you really want to sell, and gather address and information, right?
And yeah, absolutely. And understanding that the training is different, right? There's a lot of attrition, a lot of turnover when it comes to cold callers. Yeah. But you can train a lead manager to pay him a little higher. It's going to be a little bit of a higher role, but they can do a couple of things. So they can pre-qualify the leads that come in, and then they can do other stuff. For example, my lead manager, she knocks out, I train her how to set up PPC campaigns. She knocks out SMS, right? So she's my...
They can wear multiple hats.
Yeah, she wears multiple hats, still in the sourcing stage.
And still at the lower level kind of sourcing stage. Exactly. Okay. But you're saying to do the 3 to 5, you'd have a couple cold callers, a lead manager, and then maybe a closer, an acquisitions manager?
Right.
Okay, and then that pulls you out of a lot of that grind. Yeah. To really kind of maybe dial in your model.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I hired was exactly that way. I was closing. I hired a couple of cold callers, put a lead manager in because I didn't want to do that work. I wanted to close. That's my background. And then I hired somebody to come in and do dispo for me. So
and then you brought in a dispo.
Yeah, and then what I ended up doing is after some time came, the passed by and the team grew, my dispo manager actually became my director of operations. So now everybody reports to him, and then him and I have just conversations on KPIs. I jump on meetings once a week and that sort of thing.
So you internally promoted up your superstar, right? And sometimes that happens. You identify a superstar, they raise with you in the company.
And it took a couple of years before we got to that space. I feel like he's ready to run this thing. Yeah. And then I come in as a consultant to the business, and the business is still generating. So it takes a while to build it up, and at least the right way. And every company, like you said, every company is going to be different. Even if you have a similar process, a similar structure and whatnot, there's still, the culture within it is going to be different. The way that you hire is going to be different.
But if you think about it, to be doing the 3 to 5 deal, business model, cold callers aren't that expensive. You're going to be getting your data, you got to be getting your lists and stuff, but your cold callers aren't that expensive. And then your acquisitions person's commission based, so they get paid out of the deals. So that's not, so you can kind of get this thing launched and going with not a lot of overhead. There's some, right? But not crazy difficult to transition from the 1 to 3 to 5.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that difficult to get there.
Yeah, by the time you're doing one deal and you do it consistently, you already have a foundation. All you do is add some more layers to that. Yeah. I pay most of my team is paid on commission. Acquisitions are commission, dispos commission, director of operations is commission now. And you don't need a director of operations until you're doing, I don't know, 8 deals a month or something like that. But we have just salaries. We have in-house, my lead manager now, actually, she runs the cold callers. So she gets a kick from that. And then we have cold callers that are a lot cheaper because we just do direct hiring and that sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's not that it's very cost effective when you have it that way. Yeah. One thing I like, it's not the most, it's not the sexiest thing when you're talking about cold calling, but it's time tested. It's.
You mean doing cold calling versus? Oh yeah, I would say of all the things you could do, because there's just something powerful about a phone a conversation versus direct mail or maybe PPC, some of the other techniques, they work, but I agree. I think cold calling is powerful.
Yeah, we do. So we have that as a backbone sourcing strategy, and then we, depending on what the season is calling for, SMS, voicemail drops, or whatever, we'll do bolt-on strategies and whatnot. But that's always going.
Yeah, I love that. Well, since you're a systems guy, you probably would relate to this, but in my business, we test and track and test and track and test and track. That measuring stage for me is absolutely critical to everything I do. And so you want someone on your team who's really meticulous about tracking and measuring, because that's all of your decisions should come from that data in your company. Well, Rafael, love these tips. This is really helpful. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I sure did. I think this is extremely valuable. Thank you again for sharing this. Guys, if you haven't, by the way, Rafael's got a YouTube channel. Make sure you're following what he's teaching, his content. We'll put the link in the description. Get in his world and see what he's doing. You can learn a lot from him and the things he's sharing. Thank you again for all you do for the community. And if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next video.